Hello everyone, Zan here and welcome back to another video. Today, or in this video, we're gonna be talking about the act of looping in Dead by Daylight. Now, if you've been in the Dead by Daylight scene for even just a few days, you probably know what looping is. A lot of the big YouTubers like to, post looping videos or montages. So probably a little familiar with it. In this video though, we're gonna go in depth as to how to be better at looping. Now, what even is looping? Let's start with the question first. Looping is pretty much the act of running in circles while being chased by a murderous character with the intention to kill you. And you're just making sure or trying to waste as much time as possible and giving your team a lot of time to finish the generators. Now, before we go and look at some techs or tips, I'd like to ask you what you should do before a chase even starts. Let's say, for example, when you're on a gen, what's the best thing to do? Now, if you've answered to look around, you're correct. That's a very good answer and a very good strategy to do. And it's not just to see when the killer, or where the killer is rather, and it's to see where the pallets are as well. Before you even start a chase, you need to know where you want to run. It's kind of the whole point. So if you're just standing or sitting or kneeling there, whatever, and doing the gen and just looking at the gen, you will not know where the killer is, you will not know where the killer is approaching from, and you don't know where the pallets are. So before you start a chase and when you're on a gen, please look around and look at some structures. Is there a pallet there? Is there a TL wall there? Is there anything that I can use to escape this killer? So now that we got that out of the way, we can start with some tips and tricks. My first tip would be to bring Windows of Opportunity. That's a cadence perk, and it's pretty good and one of the most used perks in the game. Now, a lot of people will disagree with me here and say, hey, that's a trap perk. It won't teach you how to loop, it'll just teach you how to throw pallets down. And in some aspects, sure, I agree. But what Windows of Opportunity does is it shows you where the windows and pallets are in a certain radius, I guess. So you just always know where they are. They're highlighted in yellow. You can easily fall into a trap where you just kind of mindlessly walk to the next pallet, throw it down, next one, throw it down, next one, throw it down. That's an issue from your side. Like, I can't teach you how to kind of prevent that. One thing that I can say is just to limit test, don't throw it down. Think about what the killer would do and try to play around that. But another good thing about Windows of Opportunity is, first of all, when your teammates throw down pallets, you'll see which one are thrown down and which one are broken. Like, you don't see which one are broken, but you know, hey, there's no yellow highlighting or no yellow highlighted pallet there, so I can assume that my teammate threw that down and the killer broke it. And second thing is, it teaches you where the pallets are on certain maps. It teaches you how the maps look like, what to do, where the strong pallets are, where the filler or weaker pallets are. So that's why I just can't agree with the argument, hey, it's bad. Windows of Opportunity won't teach you how to loop. It will teach you how to loop, especially for a beginner. If you're new to the game, you don't know any maps, so that just makes no sense if I just throw you into a match without Windows of Opportunity. It'll just help you a lot. So that's my first tip I can give you. The next thing I want to talk about are dead zones. Dead zones are just areas in some maps which don't have anything. No vaults, no pallets. I mean, they might have maybe a single vault on like a Z wall, which is a very small wall, which you, if you're not a pro player like Spitz or something like that, you will not be able to loop the killer there. I can assure you that much. It's a very hard thing. But dead zones are usually like at the edge maps or like at corners. Usually there are no pallets or windows there, so it's best to just avoid the edge. A dead zone could be an area that isn't the edge, but where, let's say, a teammate already looped and the killer broke all the pallets, your teammate threw all the pallets down, so obviously there's nothing left there, and it's advised to not go there. And obviously with something like windows of opportunity, you kind of know to not enter that zone and just go somewhere else. I'm not saying it's always a bad thing to go into a dead zone. There might be a window there. Let's say you play around shack and the shack window is incredibly strong. So even if there are no pallets around the vicinity, I guess you can still play around the window. The third tip is to not throw every pallet as fast as possible. I see a lot of people just run to a pallet, throw it down, and then go to the next one. They don't even play around the pallet, and usually that just leads to a quicker down. Because let's say you're playing around or you're walking to a weaker pallet, you throw it down, and what the killer will do is just walk around it. It's a weak pallet, so there's not really, they don't really lose much distance, and you will just, waste the pallet and still go down. So you need to practice pallet discipline. Don't throw it down, just limit test. Trust me. If you lose a match because, I don't know, you limit tested too much, that's fine, but it'll just make you better. If you know how to not drop the pallet instantly and loop around the structure. And the next step, the fourth step, which is something that you can just add to this step, I guess, is hugging the loops tight as possible. What that means is pretty much self-explanatory. You just have to be as close to the walls or to the structure, I guess, as possible. What that does is obviously it just kind of minimizes the distance lost between you and the killer, and it just makes you reach some stuff you wouldn't have reached if you hugged it loosely, I guess. A lot of people just loop around walls and then they just have a massive distance between them and the wall. And the wall is not gonna hurt you. The killer will, the wall won't. So please just hug it as tight as possible. Even if you get stuck, that just builds character, I guess. You'll just get better. So yeah. Now the fifth step, or the fifth tip, will be faking windows. If you've been, like I said, in the DBD scene for some time, you probably know what faking windows is. It's pretty much the act of running towards a window and then kind of not vaulting it. The killer will think you'll vault it, maybe swing and miss, and you'll just keep on running. It's an incredibly strong thing, especially if we're talking about, let's say, the shack, and the shack doesn't have a pallet, and you really need to greed as much as possible to gain as much time and to waste as much time of the killers, so you just fake it. A lot of people will say, hey, how do I know if the killer will swing? How would I know if I can, really trick this killer? And the answer is you can't. You can't tell if a killer will miss or like swing and miss or hit you or just keep on going and not fall for the fake. But that's the point. You're going to try and kind of feel around the killer's playstyle. If the killer doesn't swing and just keep on walking, which will lead to a down or a hit, that's fine. Now you know that the killer just doesn't respect that, I guess, and just keeps on walking. They're smart enough to know that you're not gonna vault it, that you're gonna fake. So now you know you got hit, you might have been downed even, but for the next chase, you'll know to not do that. It's the same thing with greeting pallets. If you, for example, run towards a pallet and you know the killer's right behind you, most of the killers will respect it. What that means is they just won't run towards the pallet or under the pallet because they won't risk a stun, so they just stand behind it. What you can do is just keep on running after that. Pretty much that's the thing. Like when you're walking towards a pallet, you can just do a little like double back, little 360, and they'll think, oh, okay, they're gonna throw down the pallet. They'll stand still, wait for you to throw, and what you do is not throw the pallet and just keep on looping around. Some killers might just walk through it, be it, less experience, they don't know that you can get stunned or whatever, be it them having enduring, so they don't care. But once again, after that you'll know how the killer plays and you can adjust your playstyle. Okay, they don't respect, so you just throw it down, stun them. Oh, they do respect, okay, now I can really greet the pallet. The big thing is connecting loops. That's one of the best things I guess you can do in looping. It will really set you apart from like the average looper to a good looper. The act of, you know, chain looping is when you have two tiles, or like a tile and a filler tile, let's say shack, and some random weak tile right next to it. What you can do is, you know, loop around shack until the window blocks. Then after the window blocks, you just go to the filler tile and play around that, because the shack palette is always a little more important than some random weak tile. The next step, or the next two steps, are going to be check spotting and walking while in chase. Let's start with walking while in chase. Just like the name says, or the title says, you just walk while being chased. And I don't just mean in the open when the killer's right behind you. Please don't do that. What you have to do is, let's say once again, let's use shack for example, and I'm gonna keep on using shack as an example because it's a tile that usually spawns in a lot of maps. So you go towards a, you know, you vault the window for example, you run around the shack, and then you just stand there at the corner with like the window on one side and the long, like the door with the long wall on the other side. So when the killer vaults the window, you know they'll be vaulting the window, and you have plenty of time to just run around through the door. And if the killer walks through the door, you know they'll be walking through the door, so you have plenty of time to loop around. That's pretty much what check spotting is. So I just explained check spotting instead of walking in chase. But at the same time, when the killer takes a lot of time to actually decide which path to take, you can just either stand there, obviously to check where they're coming from, or walk. The way DBD works is that when the killer has line of sight of you and you start running, like pressing the shift button, the chase will start, and the killer will be able to gain butt loss, which makes them faster, and the windows can get blocked if you fast vault through them. If you're not in chase, it kind of resets, I guess. The killer will lose the bloodlust, and obviously if you vault windows not in chase, you won't get, or the windows won't be blocked. So you just kind of walk or stand to lose chase while the killer is kind of deciding where to go. You don't have to greet it all the time, like to lose chase. I'd rather you not lose a health state than to lose a health state but still not lose the chase, you know. One perk that could help you with that is Fixated. That gives you a 20% movement speed buff when walking, which makes it a little easier. I've gone through a lot of steps right now. Kind of the most important steps were talked about in this very short video. And the last thing I want to talk about is like the final maneuver you can do before you eventually get hit. Or when there are no pallets, or you're in a dead zone or something like that. And that's kind of Fov Teching, or breaking the killer's ankles. What that means is you, as a survivor, play in the third person while the killer plays in the first person. So they have less kind of vision on where you could be. They can just see in front of them in a cone kind of, and you have 360 vision. You know what's behind you, they don't. So what you do with Fov Teching is, for example, when you're getting chased, you know you're gonna get hit, or you see a pallet there or a window, but if you get hit, you'll obviously make it if you're not injured already, but at the same time you don't want to lose a health state. What you can do, for example, is walk to the left and then walk to the right instantly again. The killer will get confused because you walk to the left and then you walk to the right, and due to them being in first person, you kind of leave their vision, so they get confused, like, oh, where did this survivor go? So can kind of play around that. So they'll just swing to the left maybe even, or swing to the right, and you're already like walking straight again. And these are just, the amount of times these can work is insane. Before I really got into looping, I guess, and I'm still not the best, don't get me wrong, but I've definitely been better in the last month, and before that I never used these strategies or techs because I thought these were stupid. There's no way a killer's gonna fall for that, and yes, a lot of killers will not fall for that, but at the same time, if they fall for it, you'll get massive amounts of distance usually, or you'll reach a pallet. Same thing as when you like go around the corner, double back and do like a little twirl. You'll be able to kind of make the killer whiff the other way, and then you'll be able to just walk or continue looping around the thing. I actually have the last, or like another tip, and that is momentum. You know, when you loop around something and the killer double backs, what will happen is you'll try to go the other way. Let's say you loop left, or you press left and you want to go right now, you obviously press right to walk right. But the thing is, you'll lose a lot of momentum with that. So if the killer double backs and double backs and double backs, you'll just catch yourself. You won't be fast enough to loop around it again. So what you can do is do like a little, you know, half circle motion, if you know what I mean. Like instead of pressing A and then instantly D, you press something like ASD to do like a half circle. That'll keep your momentum and still make you fast enough to run the other direction. So anyways, that has been it with this quick and short looping guide video. I appreciate you so much if you finished it and watched it till the end. If you did, I'd really appreciate and, you know, love to get a nice little kiss from you in the comments, or just anything like that, feedback. And please leave a like and subscribe if you really like this type of content. That just tells me that I should continue stuff like that. And if you have any questions, obviously I'll answer them in the comments. Anyways guys, Zan out, and we'll hear from each other again in the next video. Bye bye.